All right, I think we've got a good number of folks here nowadays. We can get started. First, I wanted to thank everyone for showing up and taking the time out of their day to make this happen. I think we'll try pretty hard to make this worth your while. So, my name is Daniel Connor. I'm the president of the U.S. Veteran Business Alliance. But before we begin, what I wanted to do was share a little bit about USVBA because I realize that not everyone is a member here. But I'm certainly glad to keep you informed. First off, we began in 1994 as the California Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise Alliance, the DVBE Alliance. The DVBE program in the state of California was established in '89 as a statewide program to provide a 3% set aside for all disabled veteran business enterprises. Um, we've been advocating and providing for DVBEs since our founding. We've been doing it for we carried on steady state for about 20 years, and then we a little bit over, and then you realize maybe we've got to keep up with the times. We've always had the chapters in California, events, keeping the promise, turning contacts into contracts, regional events, those kind of things. But especially with COVID, the digital age has really kind of forced us to change the way we do business. And I think, to be honest, I think we've adapted pretty nicely with these Zoom meetings and some of the other things that we do. But I wanted to go into what we are now because we used to be the DVBE and now we're the USVBA, U.S. Veteran Business Alliance, and we realized that frequently having a certification as a DVBE was great, but if you don't have the underlying understanding of how to run and manage a business, then it's really not of it's not going to do as much for you, and it's going to in fact probably have the opposite effect. So what we've done is also partner with various organizations to provide you information on how best to work with them. We've had one of these events a couple months ago with USC, and they've got a tremendous executive program that can help businesses um, learn more about how to be effective and efficient, uh, run more effectively and efficiently. And we're partnering with them to provide those kind of. Um, so I'm excited for the future of what we have going on. We've got a new website coming out before too long. The membership structure is going to be adapting. We've got new partners coming along, and then importantly, we're adding benefits for the membership that we do have. So I'd ask you to check it out. Join us if you think it's worthwhile. Just do it for free at first, and then if you see that there's some more added value for you, then come on as a paid member. But excited to have you all here. And not only do we do these Zoom meetings, but eventually at the conclusion of COVID, we'll all be getting back together and doing the regional meetings and the chapter meetings, the keeping the promise. We'll provide access to contractors and to government agencies, the mentorship, education that I just talked about, and a little bit of socializing. We do have golf and that kind of stuff. It's really try to keep it fun. A little bit about how this particular Zoom meeting is running. For the if you can use the chat feature to the maximum extent possible, and raise your hand as well. That'll help the flow of things. And then at the conclusion, we'll certainly have a question and answer period for everyone to get some more input. Occasionally, I'm going to be putting some polls up. And they'll pop up in the middle of the screen. I'll try to time it so that it's not stepping on one of the presenters. But if you want to answer it, that'd be great. They're all anonymous as far as I know. But if you don't, then just click away so you can get back to the screen. But it'd be great to get your input so that we can kind of tailor these things to meet the requirements as we move on. All right, enough of that. What I want to do here is introduce Mershelle Davis. Not only is she the head of supplier diversity for McKesson, but she is a longtime supporter of our organization, a board member, and a friend of mine. So she is absolutely here to help us as folks that want to participate in McKesson's supply chain to do that. And she's got some stuff to, she will give you tough love. And it's going to be great to hear this kind of stuff. So with that, Mershelle, I'm going to put myself on mute and it's off to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Like Dan said, my name is Mershelle Davis. I'm the Supplier Diversity Lead for McKesson. And as well, USVBA has been a great asset to McKesson in helping us find qualified veteran and service disabled veteran-owned small businesses for opportunities. Now, this presentation today has been a team effort. So I want to let you know that I do have the technical experts on the line, and they will be available to answer questions at the end of the presentation. I have Tom Beckafee, who is the Director of Sourcing of Professional Services. I have Ma Vang, the Senior Category Manager. I have Karen Lim, Senior Manager for Professional Services. I have Amy Thomas, Category Manager, and Madalena Soares, Senior Manager. So I have a wealth of information and a great support group with me here today. We're going to talk about how to respond to an RFP. I'm not going to give you the technical aspects. This is more of an educational overview. The path to getting to an RFP has been long and arduous. We all know this. The average time from contact to contract is about 24 to 36 months. I didn't say weeks, I said 36 months. You put a lot of time, effort, and blood into that capability statements, meetings upon meetings, whether it was before COVID in person or during COVID that is virtual. So you went through all that effort, and that effort was successful because you got an opportunity for an RFP. But this shouldn't be where it goes wrong, but it does. First mistake, not understanding the RFP, not understanding the proposal. You need to know how you're going to approach the solution. You need to make sure you tell us the skills and methodologies that you use to give us a solution and what your capabilities are. We wouldn't have an RFP if there wasn't a problem, and you have to be our problem solver. So first mistake, not having a detailed proposal to answer and fix our problem. Second mistake, pricing is dear to all of us. That first line, there is such a thing, pricing yourself too low. These commodity managers and sourcing specialists do know what the average should be for their responses. So if you price yourself well below, you're not going on in the proposal process. You can't undervalue what you're going to put into that project. And you don't want to overprice yourself as well. That's part of knowing your market. There is absolutely nothing wrong with coming in strong and then working through the negotiations. But if you come in too high or come in too low, you'll never get to the point where you get to negotiate. Now, this one was very new to me, but after discussing it with the commodity specialist, it makes sense. You need to provide a business case to show why and how you have knowledge of what's going on. For instance, SAP, if you help stand up SAP processes with, my last name's Davis, Davis Manufacturing, then tell us that is the best you can use to tell us that you understand what you are doing and how you can help us. There are other mistakes that don't get their own slides, but they're just as important. You, through all that work, put in all these pretty slides, but you don't provide me with a solution to my problem. That was a waste of everyone's time. You have to be responsive. If you get an RFP that you know that there is nothing you can do with, please answer back to that commodity manager and sources specialist and say, hey, this is beyond me. Believe it or not, they get more respect out of that than not being responsive at all. And in the middle of the process, if they ask you for items or ask you questions, please answer those individuals immediately. Make sure that you put in every single one of those key deliverables. So if they ask for 4 key deliverables, don't send 3 and think that that's going to be okay. That is not okay. Speaking of not okay, submit on time. If the deadline is April 14th and you submitted it on April 15th, that is not on time. You're not going to get concessions for being a small business. April 14th is April 14th, and that is the deadline. While we're talking about deadlines, there are often allowances in there to ask for extensions. Do not bypass the extension deadline. If the extension deadline is on April 2, then ask for the extension before April 2, because that extension not only applies to you, but it applies to everyone else that is responding to the RFP. And make sure you use the format provided. It was provided for a reason. It is part of the evaluation criteria. Now, the good things that you need to do. If you don't understand that RFP or anything within that RFP, ask questions. But you don't ask questions to Mershelle. You ask questions to the individual that gave you the RFP. You wouldn't believe the number of times it says, Mershelle, I got the opportunity to bid, but I have a question. I can't answer the question. No supplier diversity person can answer the question. The only person answering the question should be the one who sent you the RFP. You've seen be responsive more than once. The reason why you've seen be responsive more than once is because we've had issues with that. And that's not just with small businesses, with large businesses as well. You need to show that you can do this. And part of that is being responsive. Submitting on time. You wouldn't believe it, but it happens. And that's why you see it more than once, because it's a top must do, and it's a top thing that people wrong. Last but not least, let's just take a straw man view of the proposal itself. Now, the proposal, all proposals, it's going to include that summary. This is going to be evaluated on. This is what you're going to tell us that solution to the problem. Make sure you reiterate the scope. That lets us know that you know what we need to fix our problem. Providing the solution. That's the second time you've heard providing the solution. There would not be an RFP if we did not have a problem that needed a solution. You need to understand the operating model, which goes along with understanding your industry. And the company information for you, it's how you fit. You say relevant, but what is your fit within McKesson? Now, that may have seemed short, but what I want to do next is be able to provide you some good examples. And after the good examples, we're going to open up for questions from the subject matter experts, to the subject matter experts. The first one is a great example of an executive summary. It tells the objective, it tells the scope, it tells the organization's differentiators. There is no doubt in our mind that this organization understands. The next one is an example of a scope. You see how detailed it is. That's what's going to be needed for an effective and a good responsive RFP. And last but not least, oh, no, it's not the last one. I'm sorry. Here is a proposed approach. Remember, I talked about how you're going to approach the problem. So this company provided a graphic approach on how they're going to solve our problem, or whatever that problem was. The next one is their structure. And apparently that was asked for in the RFP as a deliverable. Remember, if we ask for 4 deliverables, don't give me 3. I want all 4 deliverables. Then the next one, it may seem busy, but this is exactly what the commodity and sourcing managers are looking for. This is about the company. Remember I said, tell us how you fit within McKesson. So this one tells us how they fit, because they're giving us everything that we need to know about their company. Then we have a schedule, detailed schedule of how they're going to approach it, what is going to happen at what time and how. Now, I know that that was a lot to take in. It wasn't designed to be a detailed training session, more of an educational information session to let you know what's being looked for when you're submitting your RFPs, the mistakes, and there are common mistakes. These are not just small businesses. These are mistakes that both small businesses and large businesses make when submitting RFPs. Like I said at the beginning of my presentation, I am backed by a wonderful team that is led by Tom Beckfee. So I need for each and every one of you who have questions to use the chat function to raise your hand, and we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible.
Hi, it's Bill. Thank you much for that. Question about subcontracting. Most of our work is working in subcontractors. Is there a way to kind of get onto a list that your prime contractors can access available subs?
Is Mershelle still with us?
Rochelle's not on. I don't hear Rochelle, but this is Mavang, and I am a senior category manager in the technical services space. And I will try to attempt to answer that question that Bill had. We normally don't do subcontracting. We do require that our supplier, if they do subcontract, that they come through us and let us know who the suppliers are that they're subcontracting through. So the majority of my projects, and I do all of the technology ones, don't have a component for subcontracting. Even though the supplier does it, we do require that they come through to us first to notify us before they subcontract. So we don't actually monitor the subcontracting relationship. I hope that answers your question. And while everybody's thinking about their question, one of the things that I see a lot is people work so hard to get to this point where they're doing the proposal, and when we get it, it just doesn't come across as very attractive. And know that you guys aren't competing against other little small companies. You're competing in the technology space. You're competing against huge suppliers, providers who has got a big background. And a lot of it, they put all their money into all these marketing stuff. So their brochures and their flyers and their salespeople are great. That being said, as a respondent to a participant into an RFP, our expectation is that your proposal would be polished. Your proposal would come across clear. And what I'm seeing for the majority of the ones that I've been pushing through, and I've been doing just within the last month, I've done 9 RFPs, 9 to 10, 15 RFPs. And of those, I've asked for a diverse supplier to participate in each of them. And most of the times I fell flat. And the reason is the proposal came across and they just back to the question of pricing to yourself too low. You're already considered an underdog when you're coming in because you're competing against the big players like the Accentures and the TCS, the Cognizant, the big players already. So you're considered an underdog already. When you come in and you underprice yourself too low, they're going to say, oh, well, they just want to get their foot in the door. Well, it's great to be competitive for your pricing. It is very important for you to take a look at that to say, realistically, where should I be? I don't want to underprice myself, but I also don't want to be too high. I don't want to be competing and pricing against an Accenture because if I come in and my rate's at $500 an hour and Accenture is at $500, there's no way they're going to look at me. It doesn't matter how great and polished my SOW is. If I'm comparable to Accenture, they're never going to look at me. They're going to look at Accenture because it's the same pricing. So you have to kind of think about your mentality as you put this RFP together to say, if I'm competing with somebody in my space and I know what the cost is for certain things, let's be competitive and let's make sure our pricing makes sense. The other thing is that, and I know Mershelle talked to this a little already, but the proposals don't come in clear. Like, I want to know what you're trying to tell me. How are you going to solve my problem? I know she said this before, but I've seen proposals come in and I just don't understand how you're going to approach my problem. How many resources are you going to put on there? Are they onshore? Are they offshore? How are you going to manage the resources? How are you going to meet what I'm looking for? How are you estimating my cost? How are you estimating where my spend is? For most of what I do, it's not a staff augmentation. It's really project driven, meaning that it's going to be a project that says, hey, we want to implement X, Y, Z, or we want to have support for this organization or this group. And for that, we want to make sure that when you come in with a strong proposal that says, here's what we hear you, which is where the scope comes in. Repeat the scope. Make sure you're clear because we want to understand that your proposal is based on what we told. So when we're trying to read and understand you, we're understanding, this is why their quote is like this, because they thought the scope was X, Y, and Z only, and they didn't include A, B, C. So repeat the scope back. This is a very good point that I've seen with most good proposals, is they will repeat the scope back. This is what we heard you say. This is what we saw. This is what we think you're saying. And this is our assumptions. And this is very clear. It makes us really feel comfortable when looking at a proposal that you understand what we're asking for and that your proposal is going to address what we asked for. Otherwise, if you don't put any of that into clear, defined understanding, we're looking at your proposal and we're kind of have all these questions in our head to say, did they get it? Why are they proposing nearshore versus offshore? Why are they proposing this? But if you work very clear in terms of here's what I heard, here's what I think you need, here's how we evaluate it, here's how we think the complexity is, and this is how we're planning to meet all of what you're asking for. And in that way, it becomes very easy for us to follow through your thought process and understand how you're going to approach our problem.
Okay, I believe that Jordan is next.
Hello, can you hear me? Oh, I just got hit with this. There we go. Can you hear me okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I had a question about, so I've not submitted any proposals to your company, but I've submitted, federal ones, and some of them, you just never hear back from them at all. And I thought that like they had to give you some feedback. I know that probably your company doesn't have to. And my question is, is that appropriate? Well, first of all, on the federal side, is that something they have to do, give us feedback on a proposal we gave them? And then I guess on your side, if somebody asks you afterwards, you know, hey, I know we didn't get the contract, but do you have any feedback for us? Is that something that you would do, or is that appropriate to ask?
It is very appropriate. And let me tell you what the rules are. On the federal side, if it's a small business only competition, everybody is required to get feedback. If it is not, there is no requirement for feedback, but you can request it. And it's going to be very general. They're going to say you were too low, too high. They can say that your scope was vague. They can say that you didn't meet let's say they had a time scope. Your scope to completion was not within the time frame of the winning company. But I will tell you, it will be very vague, but it gives you something to go on. Oh yeah, I was too high. I knew that my time frame was longer, but I couldn't get the parts in enough time, or I couldn't get the personnel in the right time. So it will give you something to go off of. But the only requirement by federal law is that if it's a small business only, that means that everybody competing with small business, that is a mandatory feedback. Other than that, there is no mandatory feedback.
If it's a set aside?
No, not necessarily a set aside.
Oh, so how do you know if it's all? How do you know if you're able to say to them, "Hey, you're supposed to give me feedback"? Like on
you don't know. You can ask. Was
Okay.
this a small business only competition?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Problem at all. I was reading in. I didn't see another hand, but I was reading in the chat function. Yes, Jordan. Someone was saying yes, you can ask for a debrief after the award. Yes, there's nothing wrong with asking for it. But you may have to push for it depending on the company. Tiffany, you have been very verbal on the chat. Yes, the overhead is not as high as the big dogs. I will definitely agree with you on that aspect. Do I have any other hand raising? Okay, don't see any other hand raising, but there was other points that I did want to make sure, because Mom mentioned polished. Polished is just not with you not answering the question. Polished also has to do with grammatical errors. It does spelling errors and addition errors. Believe it or not, that does make you come across as unpolished. And that's whether you are a large business or a small business. So I want to let you know that unpolished is not just not answering the question, but it is looking at that proposal as a whole. My next question comes from Christopher.
Yes, hello. I'm sorry if I'm brand new to this type of contracting. I was under the impression that all of the RFPs would come from actual government agencies, but you guys aren't. So is that, is there other RFPs coming from all sorts of businesses? And are you linked to the government agencies? Like, how does it work?
Okay, RFPs is just a request for proposal. A request for proposal can come from almost any business. Now, we are a commercial entity. We also have the nation's largest Department of Veteran Affairs contract. So we do have a link to the government. So some of our operations are very specific as it pertains to the VA contract.
Okay, thank you very much.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
So
if someone responds to your RFP that you put out, they would be working with you as a subcontractor under the VA program that you have?
Not necessarily for the VA. I have more than just the VA. I have oncology clinics. We do distribution. So it's not just the VA. Now that is our biggest customer, but it may not just necessarily be with the VA, but you would be a sub to McKesson, yes.
No. So does McKesson also have industries it touches besides pharmaceuticals? Such as other consulting requests like valuations, models? Because I know you mentioned Accenture, and Accenture is an accountant type of firm.
Yes,
so,
why would we not use accountants?
Okay, I know, but yeah, so I was just presuming that it would only be, since your industry is pharmaceuticals, it would only be limited to that. But if you have a broader scope.
We have a broader scope. We work with businesses that assist us in the execution of our mission. And it may not necessarily always be on the pharmaceutical side of the house, like you said, with Accenture. There's nothing wrong with working with a consulting company.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm not trying to be distracted, but I do see questions coming up to Mershelle. Is there a link to the registration to a vendor to receive McKesson RFPs? There is a registration for, and I'll make sure that Dan gets that out to everybody, for registered to become a supplier, but not to the RFPs. In order to get an opportunity with McKesson, you are talking to the gatekeeper. I will evaluate your capability statement. Remember that thing we saw in like slide 2 or 3? I will evaluate your capability statement. I will meet with you virtually and we will decide if there is a fit for you within McKesson. And if there is a decision that you are a fit, because if you're selling swimsuits, that doesn't help me in distribution of pharmaceuticals. Just want to be upfront with you about that. So if we decide that there is a fit, then I forward your information to people like Ma Vang that you heard talking earlier. And if there's an opportunity for which she likes your capability statement, then you get an opportunity at the RFP. So it's kind of a little different than the government where you can go out there and bid for stuff that they are posting. We do not post. Did that answer your question? Did I lose you? Can somebody tell me if I'm lost this time? Am I still on? Thumbs up if I'm still on.
You're here.
Yes, okay. Just want to make sure I'm still on because I got disconnected earlier. But I will make sure that you have opportunity to register in Supplier IO, which is our portal, to be able to register as a potential McKesson supplier. And I'm actually going to put in how you can reach me in the chat function, so you can make sure that you're able to reach out to me and give me, guess what, your capability statement. And guess what, I can't type and talk at the same time. Okay, let's see if we're gonna get some more hand raising out there. All righty, that should say supplier.diversity@mckesson.com. That's where you need to send your capability statement to reach out to me. And that is my resource account. I have hands on it, I see it all. All righty, it said raise your hand if you need, have other questions. Let's go through and see if I had any other comments in here that I did not answer that was in the chat function. Okay, Tiffany, you're gonna be my new BFF. You're gonna have to call me and I'll answer that question, okay? Because there's a lot of that goes on with that. We do outsource some cybersecurity, but not much. So that's why I said we need to talk and see what aspect of that you would like to participate in. Alrighty, let's see who else I have. I got another question down here at the bottom. Christopher, talk to me.
Yes, I apologize. I'm the kid that always raises his hand in school. So,
I have no problem with that, Christopher.
I might have
This
a lot
is
of
the
this.
time to do it.
All right. Now, this question is geared towards the actual pricing models that should be applied to any of these RFPs or proposals. Exactly how do most RFPs actually have a pricing requirement that you need to list out of all of your overhead or all of your charges for the particular product or project?
Okay. This is where I'm going to have to call in on my team. Ma, are you still out there with me? Ma Vang, did I lose you? There we go. You're on mute, Ma.
No, I'm still here. I'm
Thank
still
you.
here. So I only handle technical services. So anything related to technology and services and implementation, I take care of. Most of my stuff will be two type of pricing model. One is a time material, which is more almost FOG, but it is hourly rate. You're charging me on an hourly rate per resource. And the second one is a fixed model, which means I'm asking you for a full solution. I want to know what it costs me to implement X, Y, and Z. And then my expectation is that you would come to me and say, Ma, here's the team that you need, and here's the total cost, but you're not going to provide me I may ask for transparency just to see how you came up with your dollar value, but my expectation is that I will pay you based on milestones. So you complete milestone 1, I will pay you X dollar. You complete milestone 2, I will pay YZ, XYZ. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. I'm going back through the chat functions. You can be shy and don't question out loud, but if you put it in the chat function, I will address it. Alrighty, so we already talked about, we're still talking about pricing. I remember before I got cut off, Ma was talking about making sure that you did not price yourself out of the competition. Please understand that they do know what the medium or mean is for that RFP. Now, you could be high with a very good explanation. I'll give you a prime example. I had a small business only competition. The small business who won was not in the mean and it was not the lowest. It was the highest. And they actually re-engineered the schematics that was given to them to show how those schematics would not work to produce the part that was needed. So not only were they not the lowest, they won, and they won a quality award. So we're talking about pricing, but if your pricing is higher and there is a credible justification for that pricing, there is a place in that proposal for that justification so you can be evaluated appropriately. So we do look at best value. So not too low, not too high, but best value. And in that case, the high one was the best value because had anyone produced the parts off of those old schematics, none of those parts would have worked. And we work the same way with best value. I see a new message in the chat function. I'm going down and checking it again.
Mershelle, while you're checking, I will add a little to what you said. This is what I tell my stakeholder and my business units. Do not look at pricing. Look at the value that the supplier, the proposal is giving you. So at some point, I will negotiate pricing. The only time we look at pricing if it's you're too low or you're too high. We either kick you out because you're an outlier, one way or the other. Otherwise, if you come in and your pricing is right in line with everybody else, we're really looking at your solution first. Do you meet our requirements before we even talk about pricing? So it's something to keep in mind. That is the first thing we do. We're not looking at the low price provider. We're not looking at whether or not your pricing makes sense. We're really just looking, first of all, do you meet our requirements? And then we will go down the negotiation path once you've been selected. But you may never get to the negotiation press if you can't get me to see that your solution works.
Thank you, Ma. What technical skills do you have the most difficult time finding? Example, artificial intelligence, ML, supply chain, Python programming. IT as a whole, it is so difficult to find. And that's how we came about this presentation, because Ma asked me for small business suppliers for a particular project on the IT side of the house, and we could not find any certified ones that we believe that were credible enough to do the job on the small business side. And often, and as my BFF, it's not often that I get an opportunity to supply at least 4 to 5 small businesses to a commodity manager to say, hey, please look at these guys. And she already wanted to look at those guys. You are the guys that she wants to look at. So we need you to be polished. Does best value also apply within the government arena? Let me let you in on a couple of things. Dan says, I'm the honest broker. I'm going to be the honest broker. In my previous life, I worked for the world's largest defense contractor. In their arena, yes, best value did apply because what they did was so critical that you truly needed best value. Have I seen that in all arenas within the government? No. So it really is depending on the entity for which you're dealing with. And if they do believe in best value, they put it out there on the table up front to let you know Do you use IBM? In what aspect? Someone asked if we use IBM. I need to know what aspect, because IBM is really huge. Analytics. Do you know if we use IBM in analytics?
We use IBM in a lot of areas. We use them in analytics, we use them in hardware, we use them in software, we use them to do implementation. It really just depends on whether they fit what we're looking for. So we definitely use IBM.
Alrighty, I'm going back up. I think I may have missed the question. I know I don't see any hands raised. Okay. Oh, I got a new message. Okay, they was just thanking us. All righty, number one, so gonna do a quick, if no one's asking any more questions. Number one, the mistakes that we reviewed today are not just small business mistakes, the large and small business mistakes. So please take that in mind. Number two, McKesson looks for best value. We always love best value. Also, we do not have a site out there so you can bid on McKesson RFPs. You have to go through the Supplier Diversity, and that's me, and you will need to submit your capability statement, because I'm not going to entertain talking to you without a capability statement. We will talk, but we will probably talk about my 11-year-old. But I need that capability statement before we start talking about opportunities within McKesson, and that's in supplier.diversity@mckesson.com that I put in the chat function. And definitely, Chris, I want to hear from you.
Okay.
No, I'm really, I wasn't being funny. I really do.
I know.
Because this is the time to get the questions out. This is so much better than you having to wait in line for an hour and a half to sit down with me at a conference. You got me up close and personal.
Yeah. And thank you for that. I appreciate the time you're putting into it. There was a previous question that talked about the skill sets you're having the most time or difficulty finding. Well, I would like to kind of, how does one know what type of skill or so you're looking for? Or let me rephrase. Because I'm in a different industry than IP and IT and all that stuff. I'm more along the lines, my personal business is more along the lines of like financial advising, tax advising, mergers and acquisitions and the sort. How do we, within McKesson or within the federal market, or how do we find potential projects specific to our, niche and skill sets?
You actually have to hit each individual supplier diversity representative for the company that you want to do business with. You will send me your capability statement. We will make up a WebEx Teams meeting, Microsoft Teams meeting, and we will sit down and discuss your capabilities.
Okay, so
It's not advertised. You won't see that advertised with a Shell. You're not going to see that advertised with a electrical company. You're not. You have to get with those supplier diversity representatives.
Okay, so it's a very boots to ground.
It is a very boots to ground for your particular commodity. Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem. I've got Bill, who I'm waiting to hear from. Bill Turner.
Sorry about that. I had it mute. Yes, ma'am. So I got here a little bit late, so forgive me if I'm asking something that you've already gone over. But I did look through the PowerPoint. I'm just looking to see if you have a certain format that you're looking to have the proposals in.
When the proposals go out, there will be a format, and that's the format that you're asked to carry. Because even within McKesson, the format for my pharmaceutical company may not be the same as for my specialty company.
Right.
So it's RFP dependent for that special format. So no, that question was not asked.
Okay.
Great question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It says, do you need, and this is a question to me, do you need e-learning for healthcare, education, software training, or electronic health costs? I don't know, but how about you send me your capability statement and I find the right person for it? Will that work? All right. Any more questions coming through? Come on, I've had a lot of good questions. I mean, so far there have been no bad questions. This is an opportunity for you to ask the question that you did not know that you could ask to someone and really get open and honest feedback, not just from supplier diversity, but from commodity managers that see RFPs. Just like the gentleman was talking earlier, I've submitted RFPs, but I never heard anything back. He didn't even know that he could ask for a debrief. And I want to warn everybody that a debrief is not specific. It will be very general, but it is better than not having any comment at all on to your performance. Larry, do you have a question? I don't see your hand raised. But if you
Yes, good afternoon. This is Larry here. Could you hear me?
Yes, Larry, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Thank you. My question is, we are an IT consulting and service organization, and the individual past performance of the members of our team is stronger than the past performance of the business itself. How do we market that? Because as a young business, we're calling, we're making small steps, but in our capability statement, it's very tough to market the strength of like my technical director or my business development director, who are really top of the industry. How do I make that come through to you, a person like yourself, on a
And that's
capability
what
statement?
to me, that open, that direct, and that upfront when we do our one-on-one. There is nothing I hate more than someone who says, oh yeah, we've got 20 years of experience in so-and-so, so-and-so. Then I call them in and we start talking one-on-one. Well, that was in my past job. No, that just makes me twitch, because that gives me the air of deception. Whereas you said, hey, I'm new, but my strength is with my past performance of my crew. See, we can work with that all day if there's an opportunity. But the honesty alone is what gets your foot in the door for that. Now, will that be that way for everybody? No, but it will get you a conversation with me.
Fantastic. Appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Will there be a video of this training? Yes. Dan made sure that we were on record when we first started. So now you get to see me start off really strong, disappear in the middle of the presentation, and then come back again. So yes, there is a video of the presentation. I believe the question was already taken care of, where you can access the material. And do I have anybody else who have any questions? Oh, Christopher, come on. I'm ready for you, Christopher.
Yeah, first I have a comment for the gentleman. When I'm advising any business, the human capital is actually the most important. So you should always lead with that in any situation, not just this. Because, that's the first, when I'm evaluating something, that's the first way to tell whether they can do something, is the actual person, the people are the first thing anybody's going to look at to see whether the business can actually provide value or increase value, so on and so forth. So, so kudos to that. And then my question is, when it comes to pricing, if you're unsure of the pricing range, how would you find that out? If there's a way of your charging?
It is, the pricing has to be based on what the industry will handle for what you're doing. You can't tell me there's nowhere out there in the industry that you can't check. And if you can't find it, I highly recommend, because those are my friends and they are free service, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTACs. They are there to assist small businesses. I highly recommend them because they're free. We can't beat free as small businesses.
Yeah. May you say that again, the Procurement
Technical Assistance Center. Most people refer to them as PTACs. There are 99 in the country. And the reason why I know there's 99 in the country is because I just finished doing a training session with them earlier today. And part of the introduction was to let us know there were 99 PTACs.
Thank you again.
Not a problem. Do I have any other questions? You have been absolutely wonderful. And thank you again for accommodating my technical issues earlier. Thank you, Ma, for stepping in. You are absolutely a wonderful team member. But I said that when we first started this. And Dan, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ma, even though I didn't hear from them, but I saw them on board. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Madalena. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back to you, Dan, for you to close it out.
Mershelle, thank you very much. And it was almost like the end of an Oscar presentation there with all the thank yous. I'm glad we could, and I think it's, I got to put a few myself. Monty, thank you for putting this whole thing together, the technical aspect of it, and so much of the marketing that goes behind it. So just a couple things. Hey, Mershelle didn't mention it, but she's also an Army veteran. So she knows the stuff it took to get to where we are. I appreciate that. Hey, if you guys have any feedback, positive, negative, send me an email to president@gousvba.org. We can put that in the chat center here in just a bit. I want to know what went well, what didn't go well, how we can improve it. And then the poll results. Thanks for providing that information. Really, it helps us hone our message and make sure we're talking to the right audience and talking in the right way to the audience we do have. And additionally, you know, we can use some of those, certainly the certification things. We'll talk to various of our partners to show them our value, to make sure that they know, hey, we want a bunch of SDVOSBs in one place at one time, or DVBEs or whatever. And then finally, it also helps us find additional presenters like Mershelle. I was just speaking with the Metropolitan Water District in Los Angeles earlier today, and they want to do something like this. We're going to be having, bounce back and forth between these kind of things and then the USC type of information, and rubber meets the road kind of stuff as we go along. And by the way, in the feedback, if you could keep it to very short and sentences. I'm a Marine, so in between my crayon snacking, I get to read these emails. So keep them easy. In the meantime, I don't think I've got anything else. So if we don't need to, I don't want to take up any more of your time, and I think we're right at an hour. This is tremendous. Oh wait, Mershelle has a finger.
I just put in the registration for McKesson into the chat box. So that's our free third-party database for those who was interested in that. And Monty, could you copy that for me? That way, if anybody calls and asks, we have it for you.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Terrific. I just put in my email address there, and I can't thank you guys enough for showing up and providing us with that information. And I really do hope that we provided you with a good amount as well. So take care, everyone, and we will hopefully talk to you soon. Don't forget to join this organization. I think we're worth it. Take care, everyone.